Have you ever been the person who finally said what everyone else already knew and somehow you became the problem? Maybe you're the spouse saying, this drinking isn't normal. Maybe you're the sibling saying, we can't keep making excuses for them. Maybe you're the parent trying to get the other parent to see the truth about your child. Or maybe you're the person who got betrayed, cheated on, lied to, or hurt, and now everyone wants you to stop talking about it because your honesty is making people uncomfortable. In a lot of dysfunctional families and relationships, the problem isn't always the drinking, the cheating, the lying, the addiction, or the chaos. Sometimes the problem becomes the person who finally says it out loud. Today we're talking about why the truth teller becomes the problem, why people get blamed for telling the truth, and why in some families naming reality can make you look like the bad guy. And if you've ever been in that position and you didn't know how to respond when people turned it around on you, keep watching, because near the end of this video, I'm going to give you a few calm, clear phrases you can use when you're being blamed for simply telling the truth. Now, a lot of the time, people aren't reacting to whether what you said is true. They're reacting to what the truth would require them to do next. That's the part, because if what you were saying is true, then somebody may have to stop minimizing. Somebody may have to stop pretending. Somebody may have to stop enabling. Somebody might have to set a boundary. Somebody might have to confront someone. Somebody might even have to admit they were wrong. And somebody might have to deal with the consequences. And a lot of people don't want the consequences of the truth. They want the comfort of the story they've been telling themselves. That's why in some families, the person who says the truth can feel more threatening than the person causing the damage, because the person causing the damage may be familiar. The lying is familiar. The chaos, familiar. The blow-ups, familiar. The denial feels normal because everybody's learned how to walk around it. They know what not to say. They know what subjects to avoid. They know exactly how to tiptoe, how to smooth things over, how to pretend that this is just how things are. But then one person comes along and finally says, no, this is not okay. And suddenly the whole system gets uncomfortable. Not because the truth is new, but because now it's being said clearly. Now people can't unhear it and pretend they don't know it. Now people have to decide what they're going to do with it. And that is why the truth teller gets blamed. Not because they created the mess, but because they refuse to keep helping everyone else ignore it. Think about a spouse who's with someone who drinks too much. For years, maybe everyone's called it stress, or just blowing off steam, or just having a few too many, or they work hard, they deserve to relax. But then the spouse says, no, this drinking is a problem, and suddenly the spouse becomes controlling, judgmental, dramatic, negative, too focused on the drinking. But the drinking was already happening. The broken promises were already happening. The mood swings, already happening. And yes, the tension in the house was already there. The spouse didn't create the problem by naming it. They just stopped protecting the fantasy that wasn't really the problem. Or think about siblings. One sibling is constantly creating chaos, borrowing money, lying, blowing up, ruining family events, getting rescued over and over again. And then the other sibling finally says, we can't keep making excuses for them. And now that sibling becomes the difficult one, the one who doesn't understand, the one who needs to let it go. But they didn't create the pattern, they just named the pattern. Or think about parents. One parent can see that their child is struggling. Maybe it's addiction, maybe it's mental health, maybe it's a behavior that's getting worse. Could be lying, stealing, failing school, isolating, getting into dangerous situations. So one parent says, we need to face this. And the other parent says, you're overreacting. Don't label them. Boys will be boys. Don't make it worse. They're just going through a phase. And now the truth-telling parent is painted as harsh, dramatic, and negative. Not because they're wrong, but because they're right. And the other parent has to stop minimizing. And that can be really uncomfortable. Think about someone who gets cheated on, or even just think about someone who gets cheated on. The betrayal happens. The person is hurt. The trust is broken. And then after a little time passes, everyone starts getting uncomfortable with their pain. The family just wants things to go back to normal. Friends want the drama to be over, and the person who cheated just wants forgiveness. And suddenly, the person who was betrayed is being pressured to move on. Forgive, stop bringing it up, stop making things awkward, stop being angry. But they're not the one who created the rupture. But they are the one who's refusing to pretend the rupture is healed because everyone else is tired of looking at it. That's part of the emotional reversal that makes people crazy. You're thinking, I didn't do this. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't drink. I didn't steal. I didn't blow the family up. I didn't create the secret. I just said what was happening. And now somehow you become the problem. You are the bad guy, the difficult one. You're the one everybody wants to manage. And it is deeply confusing when the person naming the problem gets treated like the bigger threat, like the problem itself. But that happens in dysfunctional family systems all the time because a lot of families and relationships don't organize around the truth. They organize around anxiety management. They organize around keeping things comfortable, around avoiding conflict, around protecting someone's image. Or they organize around not setting up the most reactive person. They organize around keeping the peace. But what a lot of people call keeping the peace is not actually peace. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's denial. And sometimes everyone is agreeing not to talk about the thing that's hurting everybody. And when the system depends on silence, the person who speaks up becomes dangerous. Not dangerous because they're wrong, dangerous because they threaten the arrangement. They threaten the family story, the illusion that everything's fine. They threaten the unspoken rule that says we all know, but nobody wants to talk about it. And that's why truth tellers hear things like, you're making this worse. Why would you bring that up? You're causing drama. You're too harsh. You're tearing the family apart. You need to let it go. You're obsessed. You always have to say something. You are so negative. Why can't you just move on? But the truth teller is not the one causing the disruption. They're exposing the disruption that was already there. And that's an important distinction. If there is a drinking problem in the family, naming it didn't create the drinking problem. If someone cheated, talking about the betrayal did not create the betrayal. If someone keeps lying, pointing out the lies did not create the dishonesty. If the family keeps enabling someone, naming that enabling did not create the dysfunction. But people will often act like the moment you say it is the moment the problem started. Because before that, they could pretend. Before that, they could minimize. They could avoid making a decision. Before that, they could keep going along with the story. But once you call it out clearly, the denial gets harder to maintain. And people do not always appreciate the person who makes denial harder. Now, I do want to add a really important piece here. Sometimes people tell the truth in ways that are shaming, explosive, or humiliating. And when that happens, people react to the delivery more than the message. That's a real thing, and I'm going to do a follow-up video on how to say hard things in a way that people are more likely to hear. Because being right doesn't automatically mean you're being effective. This video is about what happens when people get blamed simply for naming the reality. Because sometimes you can say it calmly, you can say it carefully, you can say it with compassion, you can say it after years of trying not to say it, and people are still going to get mad. Because the issue is not just your tone, the issue is your truth threatens their denial. And when that happens, it can be very tempting to defend yourself over and over again. You're probably going to want to explain. You're probably going to want to prove it. You're going to want to convince everyone that you're not trying to be mean. And you're probably going to want to get them to admit that you're right. But you've got to be really careful, because if the family system is committed to avoiding the truth, more explanation does not create more understanding. Sometimes it just gives them more material to argue with. They pick apart your wording. They criticize your timing. They focus on your tone. They bring up something totally unrelated, and they say you're being dramatic. They turn the conversation into a debate about you. And now the original issue disappears. That is the trap. So when you're being blamed for telling the truth, one of the best things you can do is stay grounded and not chase every accusation. You can calmly bring it back to the actual issue. Here are a few phrases that can help. I'm not trying to create drama. I'm trying to acknowledge what's already happening. You may not like what I said, but that doesn't make it untrue. I understand this is uncomfortable, but pretending is not helping. I'm not trying to attack anyone. I'm trying to be honest about the pattern I'm seeing. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm not going to keep ignoring this. I'm not the cause of the problem just because I named it. These phrases can keep you from getting pulled into the wrong argument, because the wrong argument is, why did you say it? But the better question is it true? The wrong argument is, why are you making people uncomfortable? And the better question is, why are we protecting something that's hurting people? The wrong argument is, why can't you just let it go? And the better question is, why is everyone more comfortable with pretending than dealing with reality? Now, that still doesn't mean everyone's going to thank you. They may not. They may still be mad. They may still accuse you. They may still say you're the problem, but your job isn't to make everyone comfortable with the truth. Your job is to stop abandoning what you know just because other people are uncomfortable hearing it. That's especially important in addicted families, because addiction thrives in the darkness, in the gap between what everybody sees and what nobody's willing to say. The drinking everybody notices, the pills everybody suspects, the money that keeps disappearing, the mood changes, the excuses, the missed responsibilities, the broken promises, the tension in the house, the walking on eggshells, the constant explaining why. Everybody may feel it, but the person who says it becomes the target. Because once someone says it, this is addiction, or this is not normal, or this is hurting the family just can't pretend quite as easily. And that is threatening, but it can also be necessary, because no family gets healthier by protecting the lie forever. And no relationship gets better by punishing the person who finally names what's happening. Now, again, there are better and worse ways to tell the truth. If you come in with an accusation, contempt, or humiliation, people are going to defend themselves. But if you've been carrying the burden of seeing something so clearly why everyone else keeps telling you not to say it, I want you to hear that you're not automatically wrong because people got upset. You're not automatically cruel because people got uncomfortable, and you're not automatically dramatic because you named a pattern. You're not the cause of the dysfunction. You just stop pretending it wasn't there. Sometimes the truth teller becomes the problem because they are the first person who stops cooperating with the lie. And if that's you, it can feel really lonely. It'll make you question yourself. It'll make you wonder if maybe you should have just stayed quiet. But silence isn't always kindness. Real peace requires truth. Real healing requires reality. And real repair cannot happen if everyone is more committed to protecting the story than dealing with what actually happened. So if this video has helped you put into words something you've experienced, give it a like or share it with someone who needs to hear this message. A lot of people have been blamed for telling the truth. And sometimes they just need someone to finally name what's going on in their family system. And sometimes they just need someone to name what's been happening to them.